You had plans today. You still have them, but you haven't moved. And the word that keeps coming back, lazy. But what if that's not the right word? What if what you're experiencing isn't laziness at all, but something your mind is doing on purpose? You know the feeling. There's something important you need to do. You've thought about it. You've written it down. You've told yourself tomorrow. But tomorrow becomes next week, and next week becomes a quiet, familiar guilt. Psychologists have a name for this pattern. They call it behavioral avoidance, not the failure to act, but the active retreat from something your mind perceives as a threat. And here's what makes it so confusing. The threat isn't always real. It doesn't have to be a tiger. It can be an email. It can be a blank page. It can be the fear that if you try and fail, you'll finally know something about yourself you weren't ready to know. Researchers call this self-handicapping. The brain creates a reason not to try, so it never has to face the verdict. Here is what I want you to understand. You are not broken. The mind that is resisting your life is the same mind that once kept you safe. Avoidance isn't weakness, it's a strategy, one that worked once, one that your nervous system never forgot. In developmental psychology, there's something called a protective adaptation, a behavior the mind adopted in response to an earlier experience of threat, loss, or uncertainty. The problem is, the environment changes, the adaptation doesn't. So your brain keeps using the same shield, even when there is no longer a war. Let's go inside. Imagine your brain as a house with two rooms. The first room is the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning, reasoning, long-term thinking. This is the room where your goals live. The second room is the amygdala, ancient, fast, loud. This is the room that asks one question, always. Is this safe? Now here's the thing about these rooms. They don't always cooperate. When the amygdala perceives a threat, even a symbolic one like failure or judgment, it floods the body with cortisol. And suddenly, the first room goes quiet. Your plans feel distant. Your motivation disappears. Your body says, not now. Neuroscientists call this the amygdala hijack. But here, we might call it something simpler, the quiet veto. There's also the role of dopamine. Dopamine isn't the pleasure chemical. That's a myth. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. It fires when we expect a reward. But when a task feels uncertain, when the outcome is unclear or the path is foggy, dopamine doesn't fire. And without that signal, your brain says, why bother? This is why scrolling feels effortless and creating feels impossible. One is predictable reward, the other is uncertain territory. Your brain is not lazy, it is risk-averse. So what do we do with this? Not a 10-step productivity plan. 5 principles. Quiet ones. 1. Name the resistance, not the behavior. Stop calling yourself lazy. Instead, ask, what is my mind afraid of here? Rejection? Failure? Disappointment? Psychologists call this affect labeling. The act of naming an emotion reduces its hold on the amygdala. Language gives form to the formless, and form is the beginning of choice. 2. Shrink the ask. Research on behavioral activation shows that the brain needs a minimum viable action to break the cycle of avoidance, not the whole task. 1 sentence, 5 minutes. 1 open tab. The goal is not completion. The goal is contact. 3. Make the next step embarrassingly obvious. Peter Gowitzer's research on implementation intentions found that people who define when and where they'll act are 2 to 3 times more likely to follow through. Not, "I'll work on the project," but "at 9 a.m. at the kitchen table, I'll open the file." Specificity bypasses the prefrontal fog. It removes the need for a decision. The decision was already made. 4. Notice your body before your mind. Avoidance lives in the body first. The chest tightens. The breath shortens. You feel heavy before you think a single thought. This is your nervous system speaking. Interoception, the ability to sense internal body states, is one of the most underrated tools in emotional regulation. Before you open your laptop, sit for 30 seconds. Where do you feel the resistance? What is it trying to protect? 5. Identity before action. James Clear and the researchers before him found that the most sustainable behavior change doesn't begin with a habit. It begins with an identity shift. Not, "I'm trying to write," but "I am someone who shows up to write." The brain filters experience through identity. Give it a new filter. Here's the model that holds all of this together. The quiet veto. Every time you feel the pull away from something important, that's the veto, a protective signal, not a verdict on your character. The work is not to override the veto with force. That leads to burnout, shame, the same cycle. The work is to earn the veto's trust, to show the fearful part of your mind slowly, consistently, that moving forward is safe. Name the fear. Shrink the ask. Make the step obvious. Listen to the body. Become the person who tries. Each small act is a vote in that direction. You didn't come here looking for motivation. You came because something wasn't adding up. You knew you weren't lazy. You just didn't have the language yet. Now you do. The resistance you feel is not a wall, it's a door. And unlike a wall, doors can be opened. Slowly, gently, on your terms.